to 39, 40 mile an hour gusts through our city. That means a lot of tree limbs, some trees down, some power lines down as well. I've been in contact with Archie Collins from TECO, and they have wavered between 12 and 19,000 customers out of electricity. Their lines people have been out the entire time during the storm, responding to and repairing the lines as quickly as they can to get that electricity back. Put it in perspective, around 12 to 19,000 customers out of almost 900,000 individuals and businesses that they serve. So they're looking to get that back up as quickly as possible. We were able to pick up over 90% of the debris that was left by Ian. And so we got the majority of that cleaned out of our neighborhoods. But again, just some power lines down, some trees down, nothing out of the ordinary. We have our call center set up, and that has taken around 50 calls into the call center. Right now, we have about 35 people in the one shelter that we have that's open here, and that that's a good sign as well. So things are going well. The airport did not close down. It's actually very interesting that if they do close down through the FAA, it's a very onerous process to get back up and running. And so the decision was made to keep the airport open and allow the airlines to make their own decisions. When I was in contact with Joe Lapano this morning, he said about 70% of the flights had been canceled. I'm sure that has gone up, but they're able to, as soon as the wind subsides, to continue with serving the air passengers in the Tampa Bay area. We have push crews that are out, and they're getting any reports that we have of down trees, any blockage, any street signs, anything like that. They're out fixing that right now. As you can see, we are getting wind, but rain, about 2 inches so far. So nothing extraordinary. We do have some standing water in some of the streets. We're looking at a high tide this afternoon, and we may have water issues then, but we don't expect anything substantial. Clearly, our thoughts and prayers are with those individuals on the East Coast, around Volusia County, where Nicole made landfall, and we will do anything that we can to provide them assistance in the event that they may need it. So I will bring Chief Tripp up to give an update on the storm activity, and then we'll bring Chief O'Connor up to update as well. Chief?
All right, thank you, Mayor. Just to give an update on Tropical Storm Nicole, as for as first responders, we are continuing to respond to all calls. Even though we've had an increase in wind, we are responding safely. So just want to make sure everyone continue to be safe out there on the roads. We have an increase of fire alarms, which all of them has been benign, no major fires. We've had a couple of down power lines, which called minor fires with limbs, but that's been taken care of. So as of now, as far as first responders responding to calls, we are still responding to the calls, haven't had any issues. Now, as the mayor stated, we have quite a few residents that is without power. You might want to start your generators up. If that is the case, please follow the directions of the generators as far as being outside in open air. Make sure you don't have the generator inside your home. And if you need additional information, feel free to reach out to tampa.gov/hurricane. tampa.gov/hurricane. And now I'll bring up Chief O'Connor.
Good morning, everybody. From the Tampa Police Department standpoint, we are out on the streets responding to calls, as Chief Tripp said. Anyone that needs any assistance, we are ready, willing, and able to assist. We are trying to keep the roadways clear, so if you are unnecessarily out on the roadway, we recommend you just go home and ride the rest of the storm out. Because of the power lines down, we do have some reports of traffic light incidents where the traffic lights may be out. Just want to remind everybody the safest way to handle an intersection where the traffic light is non-functioning is to treat it as a four-way stop. Obviously, proceed with caution once it's clear. But again, if the traffic light is out, please treat it as a four-way stop. We don't have any reports of major damage, but again, we are just encouraging everyone to stay off the roadways to keep them clear. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
You mentioned getting the debris cleared out. How important was that to try to make sure that we didn't see more flooding as a result?
Yeah, it's always very important that we have a great stormwater crew, that sort of debris that goes in and makes sure that the rainwater that comes from these storms has a path to get out into the bay and that there's no debris blocking that path. And then also we send in stormwater prior to, and they pull out as much water out of those retention areas as they possibly can before any storm. Now the debris left over from Ian, as you all know, we contract ahead of time with the debris removal, and we didn't have clearly as much damage as our neighbors down south did, so we only kept 2 of those debris cleaning units and then utilized our own team to pick up the Ian debris. And that's also an interesting process because we have debris management professionals that go out and assess the areas, and they send the debris teams to those areas that were most affected. And then we track that clearly at tampa.gov. Anyone can see the map and see when their neighborhood was cleaned up.
Mayor, sort of talk about the steps the city took ahead of Tropical Storm Nicole. You sort of mentioned some of those on Monday. Just why was it helpful to go ahead and get that done?
Well, it's incredibly important. With these storms, I always say that the only predictable element is the unpredictability. And so there's not a lot that you can control when the storm hits you, so you have to control as much as you can prior to. So we have a very, very robust storm policy. Everyone understands their role. We actually call it Know Your Role. And every individual on the City of Tampa team understands what their role is during that process. Whether they're on push crews and they're the first ones out to clear the roadways, if they're on call centers and they're answering the calls, they're working shelters, they're in the EOC, whatever that process is, they understand that role. And as far as the steps that are taken for preparation ahead of time is to ensure TECO ensures that trees are trimmed so that less chance of those falling onto the lines. We make sure that we have all of our waterways clear as much as possible, pull that standing water out and get rid of that. So really just go through that exercise over and over and over prior to the storm. And we have been very fortunate. We know that. We haven't taken that direct hit for 100 years, but we continue to prepare and learn lessons from other areas that have suffered direct hits. And then we incorporate those best practices into not only our response to a storm, but our preparation, which is equally, if not more important.
Mayor, to circle back on high tide this afternoon, it sounds like then, correct me if I'm wrong, flooding isn't a concern.
We don't, the typical, like up on Bayshore, we may see that, but there is predicted river flooding, but the Hillsborough River was excluded from that. And so really a little further north, they're gonna see issues. So we don't anticipate that will happen, but if we do have streets that are flooded, we encourage individuals to not drive through standing water. We see every storm what happens when that occurs, and then to stay away from any of the downlines as well.
I know you said there are some people who are staying at the Irwin Technical College shelter. How long do you anticipate to keep that open?
Probably close that down this evening because the wind should subside. This is really, although in strength, it wasn't a massive storm, but it was massive in size. I think it was somewhere 500 to 700 miles across, 2 storms that had converged. So once those winds start to subside, then we'll close that shelter down.
Mayor, do you think that we're just fresh off of Hurricane Ian here, and although we didn't in Tampa get as much of a destruction as other parts, do you think that being so recent was so fresh on people's minds, and they maybe took this a little bit more seriously than they may have otherwise.
No, I think everybody's taking these storms very seriously. They are, they're becoming stronger, maybe a little less predictable. And I'm very pleased with Ian, the way that our community responded and people evacuated and prepared to the fullest, because you can't, once the storm hits, is not the time to try to prepare or try to make important decisions. And so we try to keep everybody informed and ensure that everybody's doing all they can to keep themselves and their families safe.
Now, do you think those traffic signals that came down will be, back up and running by the end of today or maybe tomorrow?
Oh yes, those will definitely be back up. That's just the electricity. That's an issue of that. And we have generators. We have the ability to put generators into street lights. And many of you saw the other day, we've had, gosh, I think it's been 2 years downtown. We have a solar array in a sidewalk, and that will power street lights. So we're looking at those types of things too, that we don't have to take generators out in the future, that we will be able to sustain our traffic signals through solar arrays.
Mayor, you have an awesome response, and with the county, you guys work really well together.
Yes.
Especially like the shelter and those kinds of things. Talk about that a little bit, how important that cooperative effort is and how is it important to you?
Yeah, it's critically important that everybody works together because we can't do this alone, and we have to be in constant contact, constant communication, and make sure that that we're covering all of our bases. And that doesn't just apply to storms. That applies to our everyday service to the residents in Hillsborough County and in the city of Tampa. It's critical that we have those positive working relationships, and I appreciate them.
Mayor, any reports of injuries at all?
No, nothing that I know of. I did have to get dressed in the dark, and there was no injuries in that, so I'm very thankful.
Any idea of what neighborhoods are hardest hit by power outages?
No, there aren't any widespread outages, but I do know this, that, and I would assume it's up now because it was up during Ian, is that residents can go to the TECO website and see where the outages are and what the expected response time to those are. But as I said, none of our first responders came off the street, and it's my understanding that none of the TECO team came off the street either. They've been responding to these calls as they get them and getting everybody powered back up as quickly as possible.
So fortunately, it seems that everything is under control. You say tomorrow is regular back to business in the city?
Tomorrow is back to business, and we've got all of our special events. We love our special events here. So those will be back up and running tomorrow. And other than having, a few palm fronds and a few branches down, we should be in good shape. I think the individuals, the tree trimmers that take all the palm fronds off, they may be looking at less and less business because these storms seem to be taking care of that rather handedly.